Hello, this is Grady Man. It's Grady Man Radio Show on this special Friday show, and we have a special guest in the studio here. I got my wife, Sue Tuck, here, and we're going to be talking about the Smokey Bandit run, and she was on geocaching and stuff with her. How are you?
I'm good.
We have to share two microphones. This geocache run you ran on the Smokey and Bandit, how fun was it?
It was fun, but it's a very taxing journey. Like, it's a very special geocache, but it requires like 28 plus hours of being awake. Peanut wants to talk about the geocache too. Come here, Peanut.
Yeah, he's always involved in most of my shows when we do them live. Y'all started off in Atlanta and then...
Yeah, so just a little about the geocache. It's pretty special. It's geocode GC7MPJF if anyone wants to check it out at geocaching.com. And basically, the cache owner, his name or his handle is Talk2AZS. He created a Smokey and the Bandit tribute cache, and for a very short time, they were allowing augmented reality caches, and this is an augmented reality cache. So it functions very differently than your normal geocache where you go and you find it and you sign a log. This one requires that you download an app, and basically we started at the Lakewood Fairgrounds, which is where Smokey and the Bandit started.
Yeah.
And you have to scan a QR code, and at that point it asks you a question. Yeah. So you have to find the thing around there that it's asking the question about. Yeah. Answer your question, and it tells you where your next stop is. So there's 10 stops programmed, but you only get 7 of them, and they're randomized. So you don't know which places you're going to need to stop along the way. So we started in Atlanta. We left out about 5:30 in the morning on Wednesday. And the next stop was the Alabama Welcome Center. So you get on 20 and you head west. We stopped at the Alabama Welcome Center. We did our augmented reality situation there where you have to scan the code and then it asks you a question. You have to answer it. We got back on the road. It was raining horrifically through Alabama. We were at like speeds of 30 miles an hour on the interstate because of the rain coming down so hard. It was really hard to see. Once we got out of Alabama, our next stop was the Mississippi Welcome Center. So we pulled in there. We did our QR code, answered our question. Every welcome stop was like a bathroom break, so stopped there, do that, and then we got back in the car. I took over the wheel at that point and started driving, and I drove all of Mississippi and Louisiana. It was kind of cool because you take a trip and you go through Birmingham, and then you get into like Mississippi and you're in Meridian and Jackson, and then you go through Vicksburg, which was a huge Civil War battle area. So it was kind of interesting to know that you're in a city of so much history. Like, remember we watched Ghost Adventures and Zach did that 4-part series about Vicksburg. It really made me want to explore the city more. But we drove through Vicksburg. We crossed the mighty Mississippi. The bridges were amazing to drive across and see. There was actually a steamboat parked, a paddle boat. So we were able to see that as well. We crossed into Mississippi, and we did get a couple extra caches along the way. Like, we did an earth cache in Alabama that was a formation of rocks, and we did a virtual cache, which, if you don't know what a virtual cache is, it's a cache where you're going basically to a monument or a site and you have to answer questions about it. And it's usually something that has some sort of historical significance or cultural significance. The one we actually did was called Grant's Debacle, and it was about the Civil War and about how Grant tried to dig a canal around Vicksburg. So it was a really cool sight to see. And we checked that out. The next stop was the Louisiana Welcome Center, so we hit that up. They have this really adorable little sign in the shape of Louisiana. It's really cute. You have to go there and see it. And then we passed through Monroe and West Monroe, and I really wanted to stop and go to Duck Commander. But we were on a time crunch. Yeah. So we kept driving. And then basically we drove to Shreveport, and then we turned north. And once we hit Shreveport, we took 49 north to Texarkana. We got to Texarkana, which was the middle point, and that was sort of your... Like, we get there, and you have to, again, QR code, answer some questions about something, and it basically tells you, okay, now you're turning around and driving back to Georgia. We didn't turn around and drive back to Georgia right away.
Any questions about the movie?
None of the questions were about the movie. But I think that's on purpose, because it makes it so you can't cheat, because it's about something you can see from the spot where you're at. So it's usually like questions about something on a plaque, or what's on this sign, or... You know, it's questions like that, which I was expecting more movie trivia, but it really wasn't. It was more about very specific things that you were doing right there, which made it so that no one could cheat the cache. Like, you couldn't... Like, you had to be within so many feet to scan the code. Like, you couldn't even, like, cheat the location. You couldn't... which made it... Like, you had to do you had to do the run. And the challenge was the same challenge that Smokey had Smokey and the Bandit had in the movie, which was to drive from Atlanta to Texarkana and back in 28 hours. So we got to Texarkana, and Texarkana is, it for people who don't know, it is a town literally situated on the border between Texas and Arkansas. So we went from Louisiana to Arkansas into Texas. We kept crossing back and forth across State Line Road. But you go to the post office in Texarkana, and it's this beautiful, beautiful stone courthouse building. And they actually have signs, and you can straddle the line where you're standing in Texas and Arkansas at the same time. Wow. But we did that. We took pictures. We answered the cache questions there. And then because my geocaching partner, I geocache with most, Melissa, and Louisa was along on this journey as well. We were trying to pick up as many states as we could on the trip. So, like, I got badges for Louisiana, Texas, and Arkansas. So did Louisa, and Melissa got Mississippi, Louisiana, Texas, and Arkansas. So, no, maybe she already had Louisiana. But either way, we got a bunch of badges. But we made sure we got caches in Texas, the Texas side of Texarkana, and the Arkansas side of Texarkana. We had lunch at a great brisket restaurant, their championship barbecue, called Nauman's in Arkansas, on the Arkansas side. And then Melissa picked up some beer, because you can't do a Smokey and the Bandit tribute run without bringing back some beer. She picked up some beer for her husband, and we left Arkansas and we drove back. We tried to get a Whataburger, but I wasn't feeling well, and the line was really long, so we didn't bother waiting. But we drove back through Shreveport, and then just the return trip back to Atlanta. It was very long, arduous drive. We did make the trip in just under 24 hours. It was like 23 hours, 59 minutes, and 8 seconds or something like that. Like, we just eclipsed 24 hours. But once you finish that run, you get the coordinates to the final cache, where you actually have to drive to another city in Georgia and get the actual cache, which we did. And sometimes the cache owner meets you there if he's available to. But he's a really awesome cache owner in the fact that he tells you before you go, let him know you're going, so he can kind of keep up with you. And he does every step of the way. Like, he knew what our stopping points were going to be as far as the QR codes. So he was like, okay, it should take about this many hours, and he would check in on us if we hadn't checked in. But he would keep up with us, and he'd message us and tell us we were doing great on time and things like that. And it was funny because the app will actually tell you, like, you need to maintain an average speed of this to complete the challenge in time. And we were obviously well ahead of it. But it was a really fun experience. It's one of those things that you're like, okay, I'm going to do this. This is crazy. And it is crazy. And if you want to do it, you really need at least 4 people who are all going to drive and take rotations in keeping people awake, because it is really, really hard to do. In the car, I don't think any of us ever got more than like an hour and a half of sleep to kind of refresh you to be a awake person. But it was one of those experiences that I'm glad I did, but I'm not sure that I want to sign up to do it again anytime soon.
I think y'all had a fun time.
I mean, we did. I mean, you basically pack some snacks, you pack some drinks, and you get in the car and you just ride.
No, hardly stopping much. It's a little bit here and there, but no sleep.
Well, yeah, we purposely planned some stops for geocaches along the way.
Yeah.
But we knew we had a time crunch, and we were not going to jeopardize the whole experiment, the whole cache, for an extra cache along the way. That's why most of our caches were extra caches were either at the Welcome Center, or it was we did a virtual cache and we did an earth cache, because those are definitely things you can spot, you can find. You're not going to spend time hunting for them like you do a normal geocache. We did take a little extra time in Texarkana because we were like, we've been in the car for 12 hours. We need to get out and walk around and like enjoy our legs being straight for a little bit. Yeah. But yeah, it was a great time. It's just one of those things that you have to plan for. It's not something you do spur of the moment.
Yeah.
You really want to try to get a good night's sleep before you leave. And just be, ready to have some strange conversations as you drive. We did. Yeah. We got to learn about each other, and we got to just talk about random things and listening to random podcasts, and it was a very interesting trip. But it was also one of those things where you get to see, some of the interstate of the U.S. And we were all very shocked by how dismal and disappointing downtown Texarkana is. It could be so beautiful, and it looks like they're actually trying to revitalize it, which would be fantastic. But like there was a lot of abandoned buildings and things like that. It was just, there's things you see like that when you're along the way. And it was funny because Louisa and I are both interested in like history and battlefields, and she was like, I want to explore Vicksburg more. And I'm like, well, I want to stop at Duck Commander. But there's things we just couldn't do because we were racing on our time. But if you're a geocacher, it's one of those things that you really should put on your bucket list of geocaches.
Well, this is a fun show here, and I love doing geocaching myself, and me and her both do.
Yeah, I mean, I introduced you to it when we started dating, and you've been geocaching a little bit ever since, and you've gotten more serious about it even yourself in the last couple months here. I'm trying to fill out my grid. I'm trying to get one for every day of the calendar year, so that makes it a little tougher because you're trying to search so many days sometimes. Like, I just need a couple more days in July, and we're done with July, and then August we need more days, and September we need like all the days. So it gets a little tough to find them locally. We have to just venture out a little bit. But there's a lot of really cool geocaches just here in our area. Yeah. And then, Melissa...
There's a lot here in Greenville, especially.
Melissa, my geocaching partner, she just published some caches of her own last week, which was really cool because she was telling me she's getting lots of positive feedback from people who are like, thanks for putting out more caches, because the local cachers here have kind of... they've kind of exhausted the area. So getting new ones published is really cool for them. And I've actually got a plan to publish some myself here, in the next couple of weeks. Maybe put some out and publish a couple caches. And help the locals and see what we can do there.
Yeah. All right.
What's the favorite cache you found so far?
Oh, I don't know. I think the first one I liked was that time we found that one up in Gaffney, where the Gaffney Peach was.
Oh, yeah, that was nice.
I always look the cool ones with the containers. You got stuff in it, maybe.
Yeah, you like the swapping part. You're not much on the pill bottles. You're more on the ones where there's swag and travel bugs.
In it. Yeah, and I still got a travel bug I'm carrying around for a while still.
Yeah, we need to get that placed out back in the wild.
It's up here. I'm hanging on the key ring. Like I carried it as a souvenir for a while. My first one on that find. I'm almost getting close to 100. I got 98 so far found.
That's awesome. You're doing good.
Now we're doing the other thing with looks like a candy cane. It looks like candy game or whatever we're doing right now. Different 5 points per thing.
Oh, the memory lane. The memory lane game where it looks like Candyland. Yeah, it does. This is the 20th year of geocaching. It was actually started in 2000, so there were some huge celebrations planned at headquarters this year and some mega events around the country that have all been canceled thanks to COVID, because you don't want to bring that many people together. But thankfully, this is an activity we can still do because it's mostly a solo activity. Yeah. You're not really around a lot of people. But because it's the 20th year of geocaching, they published a challenge game called Memory Lane. And basically, you earn points for the different kinds of caches, and then you earn souvenir badges. They just go on your souvenir page. Yeah. But if you're a cacher, it's one of those things that you're like, I want to get them. I want to get them all. So we did do a couple caching runs. I've completed mine already. Yeah, you're still... No, you're not that far off. You're only 100. You're about 50 points away. We'll get those for you in the next couple days here.
You got till January to get it done.
Yeah, it is. It does run through January, which is the longest we've seen for a challenge. But yours will probably be done by the end of July.
Yeah. I appreciate you being on the show today and talking about this.
It was a good experience. I would definitely talk about other geocaching experiences with you.
Yeah. Alrighty, I'm going to wrap this up. Not a bad show. All right, this is a good man for the radio show on this Friday. We would have done the Friday blast off, but we decided to do it a little different today and everything. All righty, I'll catch y'all back Saturday for another show, and then I don't know if we're going to do the Saturday show or not. Happy 4th of July, everybody, if I don't do a Saturday show, but I might probably do one special for the 4th of July and stuff, since can't be much going on around certain areas since fireworks are canceled and everything in most of the states and stuff. But let's say the Macy's New York is going to still do theirs, looks like on television, or unless it's a rerun. I don't know which they're doing it live or not. Probably going to do it live with no audience, probably outside. And still just film it where everybody can still watch. But I hope everybody has a great weekend and coming up on this and everything. And this is a Great Man for Great Man Show. Peace. I'm out.